Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Senator Menendez, I'm actually going to follow up with Assistant Secretary Crittenbrink on that as well with regard to if you could go into more details. We've covered a number of the countries already, like the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, that have established these security arrangements with the People's Republic of China. Can you talk more in detail what we are doing to, say, for example, supply the training or international standards, working with our allies like Australia and New Zealand, to be able to counter some of the things that the PRC is doing? You can certainly, again, understand, countries wanting to have security, but obviously the malign influence that the PRC can do once they have a whole lot security apparatus. So maybe you could hit upon what we're trying to do to counter it, and also talk a little bit about what the PRC does. For example, we've seen them be able to extradite people from Fiji, Chinese dissidents and so forth, about once the PRC gets a hold of that security forces, what kind of malign influence they can exercise in those countries.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. As we indicated, it is deeply concerning when we see these agreements inked because they are opaque. They have caused concern both within the individual countries and across the region as well. And I think our most effective approach in every instance is we continue to engage with every partner in the Pacific, including those who have signed these agreements. But I think we're most effective when we work together with others in the region who share those concerns, who can also quietly convey the depth of our concern and to offer alternatives. And I think really that's the crux of our entire approach. We have to give these countries options.
Can you get into some of the alternatives that you're offering some of these countries? Like,
well, for example,
what can we do to counter China saying, hey, we're going to provide you people that can be on the ground? What can we do to counter that?
We have our own law enforcement training programs active throughout the Pacific, but as providing us an explicit alternative and boots on the ground, so to speak, of security forces that can help these countries. That's really where partners like Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Australia, and New Zealand, they actually have police forces on the ground in many of these countries. I think that's the most effective way forward. And again, finding that solution that's comfortable with friends in the Pacific, I think is the most effective way forward. And including in the Solomon Islands itself, where those countries that I've mentioned have helped to provide security even after this PRC.
So are we offering you training in places like the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu? And
I would have to look at the details of each country, but yes, we do provide training in the region. And again, our partners in the Pacific in particular are very active because they actually have police forces on the ground in many of these places.
Okay, can you also talk a little bit about PRC-linked organized crime in these places, and again, how it undermines the security? But can you talk about what we know about that and how that may relate to the security issues?
Senator, I don't have a great deal of depth on that. I'd probably have to bring that back. But certainly, when you think about some areas where countries ought to be cautious about their engagement with China, part of it is the leverage and the coercive avenues that are opened up for the government, but part of it is related to organized crime as well. But for any details, I'd have to take that back, but I'd be happy to do so.
Can you talk a little in detail about, again, when security forces are on the ground in some of these countries and how the PRC then uses that to suppress their dissidents who may be there or anything like that?
Well, that's the concern, Senator, the very clear concern voiced by partners, citizens of countries where these forces have been and others in the region. I'm not sure if we've seen much of that yet, but that's certainly the concern. And I think, as Assistant Secretary Ratner indicated, when we've seen China do this elsewhere, oftentimes they're looking for an avenue to get in the door, so to speak, and to expand security arrangements from there. And so that would be of deep concern, I think, to many in the region, including ourselves.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears on you just a little bit here. Can you talk about, obviously, after the Taiwan elections, Nauru switched their diplomatic ties again from Taiwan to the PRC. How much awareness do we have of that in the State Department? And obviously, this is not the first time it's happened. What are we doing to maybe try and flip them back to Taiwan recognition?
Well, there is a history for some of these countries of flipping back and forth. So there is that precedent. I think what disappointed us in that move is the way it was done. The excuses that were used by the PRC, including certain economic inducements and UN General Assembly Resolution 2758, which was misused and misinterpreted. But our message to Nauru and then to the three remaining partners of Taiwan in the region is, again, countries ought to be careful and clear-eyed about entering in these arrangements with China. China will often make many promises that remain unfulfilled and that can have negative consequences. And then with those three remaining partners, three formal diplomatic partners of Taiwan, we worked very carefully and closely with them to make sure their needs are met, and that we try to close off any opportunities for that China could exploit.
But do we know that that was going to happen? Did we know that Nehru was going to do that right after the Taiwan election? Because weren't they just talking to Taiwan about expanding some of their flights and so forth right before that?
We had known for some time that there were concerns in Nauru, and we were working with partners to meet those. But in this instance, they decided to flip. There is a history in some of these places of going back and forth, and we'll have to see. But I would just say again, we issued a public statement right after this was done. Every country has the sovereign decision to make their own decisions, including on these recognition questions. But we do encourage countries to be cautious and careful, given the track record of the PRC.
Great. Thank you, Assistant
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Secretary Crittenbrink and